Hello and welcome to another video. My name is Beth. I am a knitter and crocheter currently living in London, and I like to talk about everything I'm working on. So this episode is just a standard update podcast for the months of December and January. I had quite a fair amount of time off over December and January, so I got a good amount of knitting and crochet done. So I have 5 finished objects to show you. A lot of them you may have already seen if you watched my Everything I Knit in 2025, but I'll go in a little bit more detail in this episode. And I have 1 bonus finished object that I managed to finish in January. And then I got a bit of cast-on-itis over January. So I do have 5 whips that I have to share with you, as well as a few acquisitions, both from Christmas and from beyond. So let's get into it. The first finished object that I don't actually have physically to show you. I did have it when I filmed my Everything I Made in 2025, so I'll put some video or a picture here, but it is my 100 stitch snood by No Frills Knitting. I knitted this in Rosie's Moment sock base, which is a merino nylon blend in the colour Bubblegum. I used the 100-gram skein up completely, and I knitted this on 3mm needles. This took me 16 days, which was a bit of a surprise, but this was my last Christmas present, and I was determined to get this finished well before Christmas Day, and luckily I did. This was a Christmas gift for my partner. I knitted this slightly off gauge, so I didn't cast on 100 stitches. I actually casted on 138 stitches to make up for the gauge. In the pattern sample, the snood is actually only single layered, whereas I casted on a Judy's Magic cast on. Then I knitted all the way until my yarn had almost completely run out, and then I Kitchener stitched the live stitches to the Judy's Magic cast on edge to make kind of a seamless join. It also meant my snood was double lined. This was very successful. My partner has taken it out a few times rowing and has reported back that it is indeed very warm and does the job. Good for cycling as well, because it comes up quite high and can help keep the ears warm. Also, because I made it out of a sock yarn, it's machine washable, so he's not worried about throwing it in the washing machine when it gets all sweaty and gross. So this was just a great pattern, but also a really good one to modify. The original pattern uses a 50-gram ball, so I knew with 100 grams I could do that double layering that I needed without needing any extra yarn. It also, because it uses up a whole skein, I have no leftovers, so it is a really great project and a very mindless knit, because all you're doing is knitting stockinette in the round. So I was able to take this on the tube, I did it over my lunch breaks and got it knitted up fairly quickly. So very much recommend this pattern. Very much recommend the modification if you'd like to try it out yourself. So this pattern is perfect for either a 50-gram single layered snood or a 100-gram double layered snood. So it's pretty perfect for any amount of yarn that you have. Speaking of patterns that are good for using up yarn, I made some Christmas star ornaments by Claire M. I made these out of sock weight scraps, so some lichen and lace, but also some Somerset yarns. They take about 15 grams each for each ornament, and I used a 4.5mm hook, and I held the fingering weight yarns double. Each star took about an evening to make. Here are the ones I kept for myself. I will just hold them up so you can see them. I ended up making about 4 or 5 of these. They were so quick and addictive to make, and they make just really cute little ornaments. So I'm really happy with how these turned out. So the modifications I made, I didn't meet gauge, but that didn't really matter. I think mine just turned out smaller. So as I said, I was using fingering weight yarn held double, and I sized down my hooks so that the texture would be a bit closer. I also made 2 for each ornament, and then I sewed them together and lightly stuffed them. So I think they're quite a bit more substantial than the sample pictures, and they look great on the Christmas tree. I'm so happy with how these turned out. They make great stocking fillers or little presents. And I'm also just really glad I took the time to make a couple for myself that I could keep, because sometimes I have a bad habit of making gifts for people, really loving them, but don't want to make the pattern again. But these were so quick and easy, and I just made sure that whatever yarn I was using, I had enough left for one more. So luckily I have one of each of the colours that I was making, and I will probably be making these again. They are so effective and really cute. I definitely would do the modification again. I love how plump these are, and you don't need much of the stuffing at all. I only put in enough just to kind of raise them a little bit, make them a bit squishy. I did not overstuff them, mostly because the texture of the star still has a fair amount of holes in, and I didn't want the stuffing to like come out of the holes or look weird, but I think that looks really good. So incredibly happy with these, and they don't take any time at all. My next finished object I am really proud of. This is the Sunburst Tweedy Cushion by Beta Jezik. I have been making this out of Knitting for Olive merino and cotton merino scraps, so you may recognise some of the colours from my previous projects. I have no idea how much I was using. I did a really bad job at keeping track. In fact, I did no job of keeping track how much yarn was going into this cushion, and I ended up buying a few extra balls, so I completely lost count of how much has gone into it. I used a 4.5mm hook, and I worked on this cushion for 62 days. Originally I had envisioned this project to be a lot more long term, but I ended up loving working on this so much, and I ended up having enough cotton merino and merino scraps to finish it. So I did. This is my cushion, and I absolutely adore it. So the blue was the only colour that I had to buy more of, and originally I was just going to have this be 100% scrappy and not buy any extra yarn. But as you can kind of see behind me, my living room is quite a dark blue, and as soon as I started doing the outline in this blue, I knew I didn't want any other colour. At that point I kind of committed to buying more of the blue. All good, I ended up buying 2 extra balls, and everything else was scrap. So I think a pretty good way of using scrap, even if I did end up buying a bit more. I held all of these fingering weight yarns double using the 4.5mm hook, so they crocheted up into this really lovely texture. I really love all the colours. My gauge was a little bit off for this, so the finished square that you then crochet over the insert was a little small, but the end result I think is really lovely because it does stretch these squares really nicely across the insert. So although it was a pain in the ass to get this around the insert, I'm really happy with the finished product. I don't mind that it took a bit of extra fandangling to get it in there. Overall, I think this is a really successful piece. It has made me think about if I want to make more homeware for my flat. I think I'm more happy with it that it's a scrappy project and I got to use up quite a bit of yarn than the actual finished object. I love the finished object, I really adore it, but I'm not dying to make another one. But for now, this is my only handmade cushion and I'm very happy with it. My next finished object is the Sadie Snuggle Snood by Famp by Mippy the Label. I knitted this in Creative Anarchy's Comfort Base, which is the 100% merino in the colour Toe Beans, and Knitting for Olive's Soft Silk Mohair in the colour Dusty Rose. I used 83 grams of the Toe Beans and 43 grams of the Dusty Rose. I used 4mm needles, and this object took me 36 days to make. Here it is in all of its glory. I'm struggling to fit it all on screen, so maybe I will try it on in a minute, but I adored working on this. This pattern was both like well written in a way that there were diagrams and arrows for pickup points and everything, but also the stitch pattern and the texture, which I will show you now, is so engaging and just really entertaining to work on. The downside of that was I did have to be quite awake to work on it, but it was just so much fun, and I do like how it looks. I absolutely love the two yarns held together. I think the Creative Anarchy yarn and the Knitting for Olive mohair make such a wonderful mild pink. I don't think it's coming up on camera very well, sadly, but in real life it has like flecks of these bright kind of salmon pinks to it, as well as the dusty pink. I wish I loved the finished item as much as I enjoyed making it. And this is the downside of this piece. I don't entirely love the way it looks on me, and this is the point where I will put it on and try it on for you. So I have a couple of issues. One is I have a lot of hair, as you can see, so I'm not entirely sure where the hair is supposed to go. I'm going to try not to hit my mic. There we go. I'm not entirely sure where the hair is supposed to go, because also when I tie my hair up, it then starts to pull, you know, if my ponytail is here, it starts to pull the hood out of shape, and this ends up being like more like this. I don't think the hood itself is big enough at the top, but also then it's too big round the sides. And the other thing that I don't love about it is when I do wear it out with my coat, I kind of tie these ends at the back, but then the knot sits a bit uncomfortably under my coat. I think unfortunately that this style of accessory just doesn't work for me, which is such a shame because it is a really beautiful piece. And actually I can see on like the perfect winter's day where there is no wind and nothing falls out of place, where this might be useful, but the idea would be that I like throw this hood up and down all the time, and I just don't love it. And it's such a shame because, as I said, I had such fun working on this, but I just don't think this works for me. And that's okay. So I've decided that I'm going to unravel this and I'm going to use the yarn for something else. I'm not going to keep this one. And that's a shame because I do think it is a beautiful piece, but I just don't think it's the piece for me. That is absolutely no shade on the pattern. I absolutely love this pattern, and actually I'm making another one of Fam's cat patterns as one of my whips, so stay tuned for that when I talk about it. But I'm going to unravel this one and I'm going to repurpose the yarn for something else that I love, that I know will work for me, so stay tuned for that. And my last finished object is a pair of Fioriti socks by Lisa Schmidt. I made these out of Creative Anarchy's Hesiod base, which is their merino and nylon base in the colour Shoreline. I used 78 grams of that yarn and I knitted these on my 2.25mm needle, and these took me 42 days. Now, these took me a little longer than usual because once I had stopped going to work for the Christmas holidays, I wasn't going on the tube anymore. So I did try to knit these at home, but I just found them really dull when I wasn't on the move. So I decided just to give myself a break until I was back at work in January. So I finished the second sock once I returned to work. But here they are. I am super happy with them. I love the colour, I love the pointelle design. I just think they're adorable. I put extra effort into making sure the leg was longer than my other socks because my ankles have been feeling a little drafty and I wanted to try out just a longer sock than I had before. I made a few modifications to these, so I did a 1x1 twisted rib for the cuff, and then I can't remember which pattern I picked this up from, but I did like a pearl row before starting the pattern for the leg, and it just kind of it just breaks up where you finish the cuff and start the leg. I really like how that looks. So I did that for this pattern. I also took the heel flap and gusset out of the Cozy Autumn sock pattern by This Handmade Life, which has a little garter row, like ridge again before the heel flap. And I enjoyed doing that heel for that sock, and I wanted to do it again. With that pearl row at the top, it kind of echoes it, so I really enjoyed that, and I think it looks nice. And I'm very happy with this pair of socks. These are officially my first pair of socks of the year. If you didn't see my 2026 knitting plans, I have the ambitious goal of knitting 12 pairs of socks this year, so averaging 1 pair of socks a month. So these are officially my January socks. Even though I knitted most of them in December, we're going to overlook that, and we're only counting the finish date. So these are pair of socks number 1. So far on track with my 12 pairs of socks to 2026 goal. So that is all my finished objects, and like I said, I have more whips than usual because I got a bit excited over January. I'm not sure what came over me. First off is I have a bit of an exciting update. I did a few rows of my temperature blanket. I actually spent my pre-Christmas doing about a row a day and got a good chunk done. So I'm going to show you what I've got so far. It's currently all on my lap, but here is my stitch marker and here is the end of my blanket so far. So I did a fair amount. We are now officially into the August month, and keep in mind this isn't going to be all the way to January. I'm doing a November to November temperature blanket to celebrate what was my 30th year. This is now 2 years on and I have not finished it, but I'm determined to give it 1 more year. I have unfortunately put it back down and I haven't worked on it for all of January, but I am planning to challenge myself in February to do another row a day, and I'd really like to get the August month finished, but I'm going to do a really crap job of showing you how it's going so far. But here's the end of it, and it's just so big now. Part of the reason why it's such a pain to work on is it's just so heavy and it keeps getting bigger. I've still got August, September, October and a few days of November. So I've still got 3 months and 11 days worth of rows to do on this. So it's going to get considerably larger before it's finished. I am determined that this is the year that it gets finished. Ideally, I would like this to be finished before my next birthday. I say that every time, but here we are. I will keep you posted on this. This has been such a saga for me. This has been 2 years worth of work, and it's gonna continue to be a beast until it's finished. I just need it to be done. But this year it'll be done. I'm really proud of the progress, and I'm hoping February will bring more progress. My next whip is my Maple Meadow cardigan by Famke by Mippy the Label. I am using a yarn I got at the Knit and Stitch show last year, which is the Colouring Yarns DK. I think I'm using 4.5mm needles, which is a half size smaller than the pattern suggests. I did gauge swatch for this, and the recommended needles were just making my square a bit gappy. I have gotten quite far on this. So I have a body, I have 2 button bands, one either side. So the body has been blocked, the button bands have not been blocked, so they're still a little curly. Oh, and I have a collar as well. And I have picked up for the sleeve and have started the sleeve, which is nice. It's a similar feeling to when I was making the Sadie Snuggle Snood, but this pattern is a little bit easier on the brain. So this pointelle lace pattern is really easy to memorize, and I'm finding that I'm only glancing at the pattern, which is helpful. I've decided to go for the tapered sleeve. There's instructions in the pattern for both a tapered and a puff sleeve. I do usually prefer a puff sleeve, as you can see in this cardigan, but this cardigan I'm wanting it to do a very specific job. It's gonna be like the cardigan that I put under coats and jackets and that I use like fairly day to day. So I wanted it to be a little slimmer. So I'll see if I regret that decision once I've finished the arms, but so far so good. I'm really enjoying working on this. I have cropped it to my usual crop, which I think is really lovely. The arms are taking a little longer than I had hoped. So I was slightly hoping that I'd be able to finish this in January, but that is not the case. I'm going to be taking this into February with me, but that's fine. I'm enjoying it. It's my kind of evening knitting. The other thing I did on this was I revisited the Italian sewn bind off. I historically do not like the Italian sewn bind off. I'm not that big of a fan of how it looks. I much prefer just a regular bind off, but I didn't want to risk the button bands not kind of stretching out to match the side of the cardigan. I didn't want anything to buckle or anything like that. And I just wanted to take the pattern at face value. So I got over myself and I decided to try the sewn bind off again. And it's okay. I did it all the way on the bottom, and I think the bottom is the neatest that I've done it. I did it on the 2 button bands, but I had to start that again because I realised if I did the button bands as tight as I had done the bottom, it actually didn't stretch to the point I needed it to lay flat. So I undid that and I did the button band again, and that's worked okay. That's now kind of as stretchy as I need it to block out correctly. And then I also did it along the collar, and I kept the collar pretty loose as well because I didn't want the same thing to happen. So I think, again, I haven't blocked the button bands, so I'm really hoping that my theory is correct and it will all just lay nicely. But I'm really glad I took the time to do the Italian bind off. I think I will thank myself in the long run. The other thing I ended up doing is, as you can probably tell from my ends, I've been alternating skeins. There's no pooling that I can see. There's no like evident pooling. There's definitely striping because the yarn is very mottled, but I am so glad I took the time to alternate skeins, and I'm alternating skeins along the sleeve as well. This is one of those pieces that I could have cut some corners, but I think I would have been disappointed with myself at the result. Happy to continue working on this. I'll be even happier when it's finished. So I will update you when that happens. So this next whip was a bit of a wild card. This is the Fireplace Cat by Sarah Elizabeth Kellner. I got this book for my birthday from my date, and then for Christmas they surprised me with the yarn to make a tiny bonnie. I did mention this already in the whips that I'm taking into 2026, but I have actually gotten a bit further and I'm really excited to show you the progress. I now have a tail and a body. So the idea is I have this cream yarn that I'm going to be making most of my cat in, and then I will be duplicate stitching on the brown colours that Bonnie has in her fur. But for the tail, because she doesn't have any white in her tail really, I just decided to switch to the brown yarn and do these little stripes. I love this so much. Duplicate stitching all the brown is something I'm a little bit nervous of because I have not duplicate stitched to this extent before. I'm not very good at it because I don't have the experience. And she has a lot of brown on her back, so I will be duplicate stitching until the end of time, but I think it's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it. My next job is actually to start her little head, and hopefully this will start looking more cat-like. At the moment it kind of looks like a kidney with a tail, but I'm really pleased with how it's coming together. The pattern's great. I'll show you the book actually, give me 2 seconds. This is the book that I was gifted, and there are so many cute cats in this book. I was leafing through all of them to decide which one would be my Bonnie, and the very last one was this sleeping cat. This was the very last one, and Bonnie's an old lady cat. We don't know her exact age, but we reckon she's about 15, and she spends most of the time sleeping. In fact, as we chat, she is curled up in a ball right next to me. So I saw the sleeping fireplace cat and I knew immediately that that's the one that I was going to make. My date gifted me the Knitting for Olive in the heavy merino, and it is the perfect weight. And it's such a lovely yarn to work with as well. It's not as soft as their fingering weight merino, but it's really nice to be using in like a plush because it just feels sticky and nice and like you're not going to lose all your stitches. So I've been enjoying it. I haven't made anything like this for a really long time, so it's also quite fun on my brain. I've been doing lots of short rows and even knitting with the DPNs for a prolonged period of time is very new to me. So I'm enjoying it. I'm a bit nervous about the duplicate stitch, but I'm going to take it slow and we'll see how it goes. But I think for me, the end product is like what I'm most looking forward to. I'm so keen to have like a tiny little Bonnie. My next work in progress is actually my next sock. I decided to make the Sinope socks by Audrey Borrego. I've been making these in Woolcraft Superwash sock in the colour Harlequin and a bit of scrap of onion knit nettle sock. So I actually have a whole sock finished. I am so pleased with how these came out. Look at that. I am particularly pleased with my colour work and I have tried this on over my heel. It does fit. I had a bit of a disaster during my last colour work sock for anyone who remembers the ducky socks. I have indeed redeemed myself with this, which I was quite nervous about because it's a larger bit of colour work than I have done before. So the risk of it being too tight to fit over my heel was higher. So very pleased with this sock. I have modified the cuff to do just a 2x2 rib. I thought that looked better in this very variegated colourway. I thought the 1x1 rib looked just a little bit messy. So I've done a 2x2 rib for the cuff. The heel in this pattern was a lot pointier of a heel than I'm used to. I was interested to try it, but I don't think I'll be doing it again. I'm slightly worried that it's going to slip off the heel of my foot. And then I did my regular toe. I've actually already got the second one a good way done. So I've just finished the colour work for the second sock and I'm starting the rest of the foot. And I think I only have 26 rows to do after the colour work. So I think I will be starting my heel pretty soon. And these are my February socks. If I can end up ahead of myself by a month, I'd be quite pleased. I'm having a great time with these. The chart is only 31 rows long, so I actually did this second sock chart in one evening. I was really locked in and wanted to get it finished because the downside is of doing a colour work sock is I don't do the colour work on the tube, so I had to sit and do the colour work at home and take another project on the tube, which is also the reason why I have so many cast-ons. So I really wanted to get the colour work finished so I could then continue to knit it on the tube. So that's all done. These may even be finished by the time this video goes up. They will definitely be a finished object for the next update video. I have one more whip for you today and I have cast on a scrappy Musselburgh hat. The Musselburgh hat is a pattern by Isolde Teague. I have made one before. I've made two before in fact, and I've been really enjoying this pattern. And I have some yarn to use up, so I figured I would try and use as much as I could in one of these hats, and I could do the inside of what's left in another yarn because you don't see it. Here is what I have so far. I completed the increases and I've done a few inches of the body of the hat. I'm using the Strictly Hand-Dyed Yarns Alpaca Merino Nylon blend in the colour Artemis, as well as Creative Anarchy's Alpaca Fluff in a mystery colourway. I have already used this yarn in two previous projects and I'd really just like to finish it. So the idea of doing this Musselburgh is that I would knit this yarn until I run out. I'm really hoping I can get past basically 2/3 so that I could still flip the brim over and it will be just one colour, and then I'd use some more scraps to basically do this bit on the other side and that would stay inside the hat. We'll see how far I get. This was only born about really because I was in the middle of doing my Sinope sock and couldn't do the colour work on the tube. So I quickly did the cast on, I think the morning of like one of my work days, and then I just took this on the train. I'm not working on this a lot because it is my backup travel project, but I do have another pair of colourwork socks in my to knit list for next month. So I have a feeling I'll be getting this out again for the tube in February. It would be really nice to get not only these 2 yarns out of my stash, but the other 2 yarns that I'm planning on doing, the inside bit that you won't see. That is actually the 2 yarns that I made my previous Musselburgh out of, so it'd be a nice callback to that. This one isn't going to be done incredibly quickly, but it may get done a fair amount this month just because of the other projects I have on my needles. And that is all of my whips. Now, excitingly, I do actually have a couple of acquisitions. Some of them are Christmas presents and some of them I bought post-Christmas, but I thought I'd show you what things I have. So firstly, I was very generously gifted a set of ChiaoGoo needles by my parents this year. It is something I asked for. I do have an alright set of needles. I have a Knit Pro set that has lasted me a good few years, but they have started to deteriorate. The join between like the wood and the metal gaps, which means the yarn gets stuck in there. A few needles actually don't fit on the cords anymore and they fall off. But I've been working with them, you know. I have been making them work, but I really wanted a metal set and I wanted a new set. So I asked if my parents could get me them for Christmas and they did. And here they are. This is just a small set. This is a beautiful set of needles. They're all metal. I actually got a pair of 3mm, which don't come in the set, to test them before, so I could definitely decide. It was between these and the higher, but these also have a corresponding mini set, and I absolutely love my shorty Knit Pros sleeves. So I am hoping to also get the corresponding shorty set for my ChiaoGoos at some point in the future. I decided just to go for the smalls because I don't tend to knit very much past a 5mm needle anyway. My theory is if I ever needed a bigger needle, I would just get a single, and it's nice that you get a full bag, so there's loads of empty slots, so I can add to this if I feel the need. These also came with quite a few cords and stoppers and all of that. I really enjoy working with these, and I've got a couple of projects that are still on my Knit Pros because I either needed a shorty or they were just already on those needles. And I am not enjoying working those projects as much as the projects that I am actively working on these needles with. So far, my review is glowing. I would be very happy to do a full review of these needles in 6 months or a year. If you're interested in that, drop me a comment and I will put it on my video scheduling. The other notion or equipment-based Christmas present I got this year is I got a Swift. I got the Leica Swift in, I think it's a Beechwood. I have owned a ball winder for many years now, and I have been resorting to hooking the hank loop over the back of a chair and basically hand unwinding it while I then wind the ball winder. And it's very stop and start. You have to like unwind the chair, then wind the ball winder, and back and forth and back and forth. It's quite a repetitive movement on the shoulder and it's a bit weird, like it's not the natural movement. But I have been putting off getting a Swift because it seemed like such a luxury to me. Like I have been able to wind my balls for years and it's been fine. It's been okay. Not all of my yarn is in hanks anyway, so the amount of times that I needed to unwind a hank was so small that like having a ball winder was just fine. But when my brother and sister-in-law asked me what I wanted for Christmas, I just decided to go for it because it's different when someone else is buying it for you, right? So I got one from them for Christmas and I am loving it. I have not figured out exactly how to use it correctly yet. It is definitely much better than the back of a chair, but I have a bit of technique issues at the minute. I'm still learning, where my yarn kind of skips and it makes the ball a bit weird looking. What I've resorted to is I get it as good as I can on the ball winder the first time, and then I take it off and I rewind it, because it also, the tension coming off the Swift is quite tight, and I don't like having my balls of yarn wound up that tight. On the second wind, I can make sure it's a bit looser. I'm sure that'll all come with more experience, like learning how this works. This is already making my life better. I'm very happy to finally have a Swift. My last two acquisitions are both yarn and both post-Christmas, so these were bought with my own money. I was able to pick up on Vinted a second ball of Creative Anarchy's Comfort Base in the colour Toe Beans. If you were paying attention earlier, this is the yarn that I knitted up my Sadie Snuggle Snood in, and because I've now purchased a second hank of yarn, I have enough to make a vest, which is what I would like to do with the pulled out version of my hood. I'm going to use exactly the same combination. I'm going to use this paired with the Knitting for Olive's Soft Silk Mohair in Dusty Rose. And I really want to make another one of my swirl slipovers by Twin Knits. I have one in a navy acrylic yarn, which I absolutely loved making, but it is not wearing very well. It is pilling and pulling and it's not very nice. I really want to knit this up into a slipover. And my last acquisition I picked up from Loop London. I went on a little yarn crawl with my friend and I was looking for a base colour for the Blooming Lavender socks by Stone Knit. I have some purple and some green. The purple's left over from my Fioriti socks, and the green I picked up from the last Unravelled festival. And while I was at Loop, I found this gorgeous Life in the Long Grass colour in wheat, which has some really cute flecks of green. So I think it's going to tie in with the colours I have already really well. I have used this base before for a couple of other socks and I really like it. It's a really comfy, soft base and it knits up really nicely. I can show you the colour combo. So this is what I have in mind. I am so excited about these colourwork socks. So I'm hoping these will be my March socks. And that's everything for this month's update. Thank you so much for hanging around while I talk through all of my things. I feel like this few months have been quite productive. Obviously I had that time off over Christmas and I'm feeling very invigorated for the new year. I really appreciate you watching these videos. I really enjoy making them. I have a bit of an exciting video planned for next time. I am hoping to finish it February, so it'll be a bit more of a vlog style, but basically all of those 5 whips that I've shown you today, plus hopefully the vest, I would like to complete in February. It's very ambitious and we'll see how far I get. That would be a nice aim. But until then, thank you so much for watching. I hope you got a lot of knitting done and let me know what you're working on. I am always very intrigued to see what other people are making. I'll see you in the next one, hopefully. Bye.